Recently, I captured this tweet from Harvard Business Review stating that just 21% of board directors think that technology trends are a major strategy challenge for their firms, right? Which is shocking, in my personal opinion. And Salim responded, "This is why major corporations are an existential threat," right? And I put an arrow on this screen here next to the word "think," right? Because that's where the challenge always is, right? It's our mindset, our way of thinking. That is the challenge. If we could see things coming, then the technology trends wouldn't be such a challenge to us, right? But our way of thinking, our way of seeing things is the challenge, is our limitation, right? And I think as a coach, we have an obligation, also a wonderful opportunity to challenge the way we think, challenge the way our client thinks.
To jump right into it, let's talk about artificial intelligence. It's a big topic already in everybody's mind here. There's already been quite a bit of speculation given to me that in 7 or 8 years, this interview will be conducted by some kind of artificial intelligence, which might make it better. That there won't be journalists here, there'll be machines doing all of the work, which also could be an improvement for all I know. You guys obviously are an investor in OpenAI. You've invested more. There are many reports out there that you are looking to invest more. I think 10 billion has been thrown around as the number out there. You have an inside view of the technology. Can you just put in some broad perspective? We saw the demo. We've all experienced it. We see the sort of the dramatic impact it has. How do you assess really holistically where the technology is and isn't, what it does, what it doesn't do, and how big a breakthrough moment we're at?
Yeah, first of all, I wish I'd put ChatGPT through that security line myself. Let me just kind of give you 2 anecdotes and then try to generalize it. On New Year's Day this year, I just looked in my news feed and I saw this tweet that Andrej Karpathy, who is who was the guy at Tesla who did the autopilot, tweeted saying 80% of the code he writes today is being written by GitHub Copilot. Think about this, right? This is one of the most elite AI developers who is saying that they're being that much more productive. It's not that Andrej is not doing great AI work. It's just that he's getting a ton of leverage. And that's perhaps been the breakthrough product of this generation of AI in the last year. And it's a real product. It's not some research project somewhere, what have you. I mean, this is literally changing the productivity curve for some of the most, for software engineers, which was considered the knowledge worker, or rather the most sort of difficult to automate knowledge work, so to speak. And so that's one. Then the next day I was in India and I saw this demo, which was just completely stunning for me. I saw someone use one of the Indian vernacular languages, talking to a bot that Microsoft Research, along with our partners from the Ministry of Electronics, and a program called Bhashini, which is about trying to basically use AI to get language translation to be democratized in India. But so here's essentially someone who is in rural India using one of their of a local language, talking to a bot on WhatsApp, and this bot, basically this person wanted to have access to some government program. And so he asks about the program. The bot comes back and says, you should go to the portal and do X, Y, and Z. And he then goes on to say that, look, I don't want to go to the portal, just do this for me. And so this is someone in rural India sort of expressing a pretty complex thought, even if they may not be all literate about how to navigate some complex set of instructions. And then on the back end of it, what the team had done was used GPT to essentially train over all of Government of India's documents and made it accessible in every Indian language and made it automatable. So think about this. I'd never seen in my life, at least in the 30 years I've been in tech, ever a demo where an advance that happened in, say, West Coast of the United States shows up in very real terms for someone in rural India within months. I mean, that is diffusion of technology that I've never seen. I don't think it happened in the Industrial Revolution, but maybe this time around, in what is sort of the knowledge worker equivalent of the Industrial Revolution, it's going to help everybody. So these two things, so the most elite AI developer on one end, and on the other end, there is a rural farmer in India being able to access government programs through AI. So those two anecdotes speak to me at least what the power of this thing is. What if there was a fantastic tutor teacher for every student learning math going forward? That is now possible.
What happens when there is, no shortage of labor? This is why I think long term that there will need to be universal basic income. Yeah. But not right now, because this robot doesn't work. So we just need a minute. So yeah, but I think essentially in the future, physical work will be a choice. If you want to do it, you can, but you won't need to do it. And yeah, I think it obviously has profound implications for the economy because given that the economy at its foundational level is labor, I mean, capital equipment is just distilled labor, then is there any actual limit to the economy? Maybe not.
铁大，你过来吧。
好的，我来了。
要不给大家打个招呼？
大家好啊，我是 Cyber One， 小名叫铁大。
哇，你的花很漂亮啊。
雷总你好，你比我想象中的高，这朵花送给你。
These are the 16 tipping elements, the large biophysical systems that we have scientific evidence that regulates the state of the entire climate system on Earth. 9 of these 16 are showing signs of instability. Push them too far and they will shift over from supporting humanity to starting to undermine humanity. 4 of these are showing scientific evidence of now being at risk already at 1.5 degrees Celsius. We're approaching this point very rapidly. 2 of them, the Greenland ice sheet and the West Antarctic ice sheet, together represent 10 meters sea level rise. This shows scientifically that 1.5 degrees Celsius is a physical limit. It is not a political target. But what I say next will be the most alarming thing. We have more and more scientific evidence of connectivity between these tipping elements. Cascade risk of dominoes. Let me give you one example. Here's the one that is most researched. Greenland ice sheet, accelerated melting, warming 4 times faster than the planet as a whole, releasing cold fresh water, slowing down the overturning of heat in the North Atlantic, pushing the whole monsoon system down further south, causing droughts and forest fires over the Amazon rainforest. One more tipping element system, locking warm surface water in the Southern Ocean, accelerating the melting of the West Antarctic ice sheet. The North Pole is connected to the South Pole in regulating the stability of the entire Earth system. Dear friends, scientifically, this is not a climate crisis. We are now facing something deeper. Mass extinction, air pollution, undermining ecosystem functions, really putting humanity's future at risk. This is a planetary crisis.
The reason that Bitcoin is magical is because there's only 21 million. I can create more real estate in New York City. I can create more cars. I can create more luxury watches. I can create more gold. I can create more shares of stock. I can create more bonds. I can create any commodity. They're commodities by definition. Given enough money and time, I can create infinite of any of them. Bitcoin is a scarcity.
Our world is changing very fast, and this change is very challenging for many of us human beings. To support individuals and our organizations through these processes of change and transformation, we came up with a role with the title Sprinthero. So a Sprinthero is really someone who helps teams and organizations make hard decisions faster in this external world that's getting increasingly complex. You're about to begin a certification course as a Sprinthero that focuses on how this world is changing now from scarcity to abundance. How can we thrive and leverage this transformation rather than let us get disrupted by it? You'll be an abundance coach who can leverage your combination of coaching skills and your understanding of how abundance can really benefit your clients. Welcome to the Abundance Coach program. I'm Lars, and I will be your trainer and mentor as we explore this new era we live in. Let's call it the age of AI or age of abundance. The World Economic Forum calls it the fourth industrial revolution. We see the external world is changing at an accelerating pace. And as human biological creatures with a scarcity mindset, we really must learn how our inner world needs to adapt and change along with that change. Let's unlock the secrets to abundance and prosperity so we can achieve our dreams, so we can feel that we are a contributing part of society, perhaps in new ways compared to formal education we received and the career path that we may have been traveling on this far in life. Let's discover together how we can help others around us to do the same. We'll focus on key aspects of coaching in this period of transformation to abundance. And I see this role as a coach to be critical and quite relevant in any role we each fill professionally and in our personal lives. Coaching is maybe the most important 21st century skill set, as it enables us, with the help from others, to broaden our perspective and see new ways of accomplishing our goals and solve grand challenges. This first video in our Abundance Coach program introduces you to the fourth industrial revolution in the first part, and the second part of the video is an introduction to the role as a coach and the importance of coaching skills. This video is an introduction that gets us started thinking about scarcity versus abundance. You may actually skip the second part of the video if you're already familiar with coaching already. Let's dive in. The fourth industrial revolution is characterized by the merging of physical, digital, and biological systems. This new era is transforming how we live, how we work, how we interact with each other. The rapid pace of technological advancement is having a profound impact on businesses and society as a whole. Let's begin watching this introduction of the fourth industrial revolution by World Economic Forum. The video is from 2016, and we were already on this exponential curve of change by then. Enjoy.
We are wondering what is happening to the world. Everything is changing.
The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change.
Our bodies will be so high-tech we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
Inside our own heads is the most complex arrangement of matter in the known universe.
You might ask yourself, can we get to be superhumans? The original Industrial Revolution was driven by the discovery that you could use steam engines to do all kinds of interesting things.
But that was followed by additional revolutions for electricity and computers and communications technology. We're now in the early stages of the fourth Industrial Revolution, which is bringing together digital, physical, and biological systems.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
With the ability to visualize brain activity, for example, through a simple consumer-based EEG device, it gives us access to ourselves in ways that we've never before thought possible. It unlocks the black box that is the brain and enables us to really, truly be able to realize an identity that is aspirational.
There's now a scientific foundation for the effects of mindfulness on the brain, on the genome, on biological aging. And when the human mind does know itself, then you get the potential for a new renaissance that restructures itself in terms of our relationship to life, our relationship to the planet, our relationship to work.
We need a different economic model. And by that I don't mean capitalism versus communism. What I'm talking about is a shift in the system along the lines of the two big changes that happened in the 20th century, Keynesianism, with a much greater focus on health and education and the role of government working with business, and then a reaction against that in late century to neoliberalism, where the focus was on free markets, freedom of the individual, and getting governments out of the way. We need a shift to a new system that will allow us to meet the basic needs of every human on the planet, that will live within planetary means, that will be fairer, and that will be focused as its key goal not on growth per se, but on maximizing human well-being. And history tells us that a value shift is triggered by creation of a new story about how we want to live.
I see the circular economy as something which fits very closely with mankind's goal to be innovative and creative and to always progress. We can use asset tracking, we can use IT, we can use 3D printing to enable this different economic model to recover materials, feed them back into the economy, and really to decouple growth from the resource constraints we have.
The reason we live in cities is not different today than it was 10,000 years ago. Even if we have got networks connecting us, we still want to have places where we meet in person. This means the place where we work and the place where we live are much closer to each other, a city where we don't need to have big supply chains in order to produce things, where many things can be sourced locally thanks to 3D printing and robotics. So if we're able to do something to transform cities, to make them more efficient, then the impact can be huge.
Think about the prospect of getting rid of plastics. We must not only be inspired or informed by nature, but actually use natural organisms with which to design products and building parts. Only instead of varying material properties, we're varying biological functionality.
Design is critical today because it's the first signal of human intention. So the question of adding quality to quantity, it isn't a matter of simply circulating things that are potentially toxic. It's circulating things that are safe and healthy for all generations. So the goal is no longer I want to be less bad, less monotonous, less unsafe, less unjust. It's really about a diverse, safe, healthy, and just world with clean air, clean water, clean soil, clean energy.
Together we are fighting to preserve our fragile climate from irreversible damage and devastation of unthinkable proportions.
If we think about the original Industrial Revolution, it was an energy revolution. I like to think of it as a kind of bookending of a period in human history during which we used fossil fuels, and it worked very well for us for a long time, but now we have to bring that to an end. We have energy technologies that can power our civilization: solar, wind, biomass. So then the question is, well, how do we get grid integration? Maybe the wind is blowing in Denmark, the sun is shining in Germany, and now you can move that electricity through an integrated grid. You can supply energy to everyone who needs it, and you can supply energy at all times.
Walking around, you do see different stuff, as far as like the body marriage line. They use a lot of things that help them lift up and move things to the car. You just sit there and, program something, and it has its own set mind to go ahead and do everything. And then as humans, we just come in and take the extra steps to help the technology.
It's not the cure-all for everything. There's definitely a lot of things where people perform the operation better, but certainly for the right applications, robotics are a huge improvement for the process.
The prediction of 5 million jobs lost by 2020 to technology is serious, but it's not the main question. Construction, manufacturing, services, public health and education, these industries will still exist. The main question is, what will be the future of work? How will we define work? How will we share the wealth?
From the viewpoint of the labor or jobs, now we really need new education or new training.
We're working with a World in Motion and First Robotics, trying to encourage students from 3rd grade all the way up through the end of high school. We had students make sailboats, and then we had them race them, and so they could see how quickly they could move. And they immediately went back and started to say, oh, I saw what happened, I'm going to go change this or that. And that was 3rd graders.
I just given a prize to a kid of 18 years old that has discovered something really very, very unique. Came up with how to get better productivity and better yields for seeds of corn. And so he basically came with the idea that if you would perforate these seeds, you would get more food. And you think about it and say, but he didn't go to university. So how does he get all that knowledge? And he told me, I've been watching YouTube since the age of 12, and I'm so interested that I've seen everything about it. I've read everything about it. The world is really open to learning. The thing is, how do you give the incentive to your kids to do that?
It's this ability of digital technology to change outcomes, to truly empower people all over the world that can create a more equitable growth, because I think the world needs that.
Fourth industrial revolution has the potential to make inequalities visible and to make them less acceptable in the future, and hopefully to gather and garner political support to take the necessary decision to reduce the gap.
Humans have always been using tools, but because of the recent advances in technology, we're beginning to have machines that can augment us in all sorts of interesting ways.
I was the first person in the world to be able to voluntarily move my legs while stepping in a robot by exciting the nervous system using electrical stimulators directly onto the spine. We believe that a cure will be possible if enough of the right people have the will to fast-track a cure for paralysis.
We
We take two things from the patient. First, we take a three-dimensional X-ray and we extract the three-dimensional data out of that so we can make a perfectly shaped puzzle piece. And then we also take a sample of fat tissue from the patient so that we can extract the stem cells out of those. And we use those stem cells with this three-dimensional scaffold that we fabricate, and after 3 weeks we have a piece of living bone that's ready for implantation.
Being able to use genome editing to understand the genetic changes that lead to cancer, and technologies like drug delivery, getting molecules into particular types of cells. There's a lot of excitement about being able to move much more quickly on this disease.
One of the things that I think is so essential to free and open societies is freedom of thought. And up until now, the conversation we've been having is around freedom of speech. Once we can access people's thoughts and access people's emotion, we have to create a space that enables people to think freely, to think divergent thoughts, to think creative thoughts. And in a society where people fear having those thoughts, the likelihood of being able to enjoy progress is significantly diminished.
We need to take responsibility at every level of society, from the individual and the personal to the institutional to the global, to adapt to these technological challenges and changes which are redefining what it means to be human, what it means to work, what it means to be completely embedded in this world.
People always ask me if I'm an optimist or a pessimist. The technology exists, but how do we get it and implement it at the scale we need at a price that people around the world can afford?
Even though we have everyday problems we have to solve, we have to find a way to lay the foundations for the innovations of tomorrow.
You have to embrace change, that the idea that you can learn something in your youth, a profession, a way of life, and it will just be there for the rest of your life, which was the situation for most of history. This is no longer the case. We have to keep learning and keep changing throughout our lives. Otherwise, we will be left behind. So that's one key principle. Related to that is that maybe the most important quality to survive and flourish in the 21st century is to have mental flexibility. Not just to keep learning and changing again and again, also to keep letting go. Part of what makes it difficult to learn new things that we hold on. Like, I spent so many years learning something, and now the world has changed, and I just don't want to let go. And letting go, maybe I'll give an example of how deep it goes. Like, it's not just what you learned in college or what you learned in kindergarten. It's even what you learned as a baby, as a toddler, like learning how to see or learning how to walk. And what does that mean? I have to relearn how to see and walk. Well, as virtual reality improves, and with all the talk of the metaverse and so forth that we'll discuss later on, increasingly it's likely that there will be many more activities shifting from the physical biological world that we know into a new reality, a virtual reality, which has different physical and biological laws. Even the laws of physics there are different. So whether you want to interact socially there, or maybe you have a job in virtual reality, in the metaverse, or maybe you design, you have a new job designing fashion, designing shirts for virtual reality because people want to look good there. You need to forget how physics and light and gravity works here, because it works in a different way in that reality. So just, what does it mean? Like, I'm now 46. Let's say I have a new job designing fashion for the metaverse. How can I, at age 46, kind of forget what it means to see and learn from scratch how to see things.
Are you optimistic that adults can do that?
Humans have an amazing ability to adapt and to change. You know, it's often said that AI is nowhere near its full capabilities, but human beings too, nowhere near their full capabilities. We really have no idea what we can still do, what our mind can still do. If you think about jobs again, so you know, the biggest change in the job market of the 20th century, looking at the previous century, it didn't come from any technological invention. It actually came from unlocking the potential of half the human species. Women, which were barred from so many jobs because people thought they were incapable of doing that, and they didn't have the education and training and so forth. And the feminist revolution and the changes in gender relations just completely changed the job market, and you didn't need to genetically engineer women's DNA or to kind of connect them to some new device. No, the potential to be presidents, to be judges, to be journalists, to be scientists was always there, but it wasn't tapped. And it's to a large extent, I hope we'll see something similar in the 21st century, that yes, we have all these new challenges, but we also have this amazing untapped potential within us. But this links to the third thing, which is we can't do it alone. Like placing
Humans can't do it alone, or individuals can't do it alone?
Individuals can't do it alone. Like placing all the responsibility on individuals. The world is changing, now it's your job to adapt, to change yourself, to learn. It doesn't work like that. It's too much for an individual to do just by themselves. Will require organizations, governments to step in to make sure that people are not left behind. You know, just retraining people. You lose your old job to a computer or a robot or a self-driving vehicle. There are new jobs. I don't think there'll be a problem of just an absolute lack of jobs. All jobs disappear, but new jobs emerge. The really difficult thing will be the transition. And the transition, first of all, you need some kind of financial assistance. Like you lost your old job, you need to retrain for a couple of months for a new profession maybe, who is going to support you during this time. So just as in the 20th century, governments built this huge infrastructure for educating the young, schools and colleges and so forth, will now need to build another infrastructure to educate and to retrain people in the 40s and 50s.
Do you see that as...
One last thing is that they'll also need psychological help.
That's what I was
Again, because it's going to be extremely stressful. To kind of invent yourself when you're 16, this is what you do when you're 16. But when you're 46, you want to take it easy. I don't want to start all over again. So it's psychologically very, very stressful. And I think that we will have to see more government support for mental health, just to cope with the immense stress of the 21st century.
Welcome back. In this world of abundance, there's a growing need for soft skills, or I would rather call them human skills, such as coaching. As a matter of fact, I will argue, like I did in my intro, that coaching is one of the most important 21st century skills for anyone, regardless of which role we play in our interactions with other people. Coaching helps us as individuals, it helps us in teams, it helps our organizations to thrive in an ever-changing environment by fostering a growth mindset. It helps us to develop our emotional intelligence and building resilience. Coaching is not just a one-time process. It's actually a continuous journey of self-discovery and improvement. It enables us as individuals to develop the skills needed to adapt to this fourth industrial revolution and reach our full potential. Through coaching individuals and organizations, we can develop a culture of learning and innovation. We can encourage creativity and collaboration and critical thinking. We can cultivate a sense of purpose, which is essential in a world where technology is driving this change. So as the fourth industrial revolution unfolds, coaching skills will become increasingly important. Whether you're an individual looking to upskill yourself or you're a business looking to stay ahead of the curve, coaching is a powerful tool for success. But what's your definition of coaching and successful coaching actually? It may be good to spend a moment discussing this. So here comes the question for you, and I would like you to pause this video while you come up with your own answers. When you come back, you will hear how other abundance coaches define successful coaching. During the video clips, you will sometimes hear a reference to EXO or EXO coaching. EXO stands for Exponential Organizations, which are organizations that leverage abundance. That's really all you need to know about the term EXO. Here comes the question for you. What's your definition of successful coaching? Pause the video now until you've written down one or maybe more definitions in your own words.
I think successful coaching is about helping others finding the answers. So guiding them to find those truths within them or within their ecosystem or organization.
I am going to pose questions to his or her situations and not give him answers by way of asking good questions so that he herself comes out with an answer. So my ability to offer the perspective first and then ask the right questions is my idea of a good coach.
I'm going to take the more generalist approach to coaching, but I think it's really to bring out the best in either the person, if you're coaching individually, or the team or the group, if you're coaching a team, whether that's in our EXO sprints or on the hockey ice as the NHL is starting now. And it's important whether, if it's a person, it's about bringing out their skills and attitude, and for groups, it's about how they can work together, because you might have a bunch of brilliant people, but you need to coach them to actually work together in a cohesive way. And motivation is a big part about coaching too, right? Getting people to really get involved and so forth.
So I think it's also about changing the usual fight or flight instinct that people have around change and turning that into inspiration and motivation, along with having the skills to actually change the metabolism of the company to change. And I really like what Fernando just said, because it kind of leads into the EXO attributes, things like autonomy. So it's actually experiencing autonomy for the first time often. And often also experiencing their competence for the first time. Often people work in a very small niche of what they do, and suddenly they have this sort of blossoming, which is wonderful to see.
So I had a very nice coaching experience in last spring when my daughter learned how to ride a bicycle. And so I also know, but it was sometimes very, very difficult to teaching is not the best word for it, but to somehow to motivate and also keep his her impressions in a right manner. So it was very, very difficult for me, because she's my first kid, and but it was something very, very special. So I couldn't tell her how to ride the bike, but how to react on when she was feeling to fall, or what happened after it happened, after she fell with the bike. And so this was something very, very special. And I think we have to do something similar with clients when they are looking for solutions, but they don't see how they can achieve that one, just that they see that, okay, I want to learn how to ride the bicycle.
Yeah, maybe I can just add to that, because I was kind of inspired by Peter's comment. I also have a quite broad general understanding of successful coaching. First of all, I'm still, focused on this about unlocking the potential, and I think that's a good headline for the whole coaching. How do you then do that? I mean, first of all, you need to help the client or the individual or the organization to understand the problem, understand the situation, and this about asking questions and examining this in a broad sense is often a very helpful intervention. Help to see possibilities, and also to have the client to take responsibility of the role, so they don't play the victim card, that I'm kind of victim to the situation. So kind of change or broaden that perspective of the client is very effective coaching. And then finally, have the clients understand how they can impact the situation with those strengths they have discovered during the coaching.
How do we define coaching if we look on the internet? So one of the key definitions, which I actually enjoy very much, is this one: that coaching is helping someone to unlock their personal potential. I love that statement. It's everywhere on the internet, and there are many other variants of this definition. I like them all pretty much, but this is my favorite because it talks about the personal potential. And I keep reminding myself and others that when we run a sprint, which involves a lot of people in an organization, we are not transforming the whole organization overnight. We are actually transforming individuals first, in my opinion. We are transforming one person at a time, maybe, hopefully several at the same time. But those individuals will be the ones suddenly seeing things in a new way. And then they will help to challenge the rest of us in thinking differently. And as this starts to spread, a group can start a transformation of mindset. And then groups can spread this out to larger organizations, right? So I think this starts with the individual always. And then the larger the organization, the more work we need to do to spread this out, spread this mindset. And everybody needs to be part of doing that. It's like growing our own ecosystem, right? And you guys are here because you have similar mindsets. That's wonderful. That's what our clients are trying to build as well. And we are here to help them on that. I just wanted also to kind of rework this definition a little bit, maybe for our exponential use. So I've been playing a little bit. I couldn't sleep last night. It's a joke, but I did do this last night. So I'm kind of, what if we, for the sake of this little exercise, replace personal potential with exponential thinking? It's both, I think. But coaching is helping someone to unlock the exponential thinking. Maybe that could be fun, right? Maybe that could be an interesting definition.
Yeah, I think that's the whole point, is it not? That essentially, there's so many people whose thinking is very linear, very scarcity sort of focused, and being able to give people, to really open up that ability to think exponentially and to see things in a different way is so amazing, and that's what you see, sort of light bulbs switching on. But it is a matter of getting them to switch the light bulb on, as opposed to you sort of trying to bash it into their head, I guess.
Just a question, how would you characterize the differences between coaching and mentoring?
Mm-hmm. For me, it's kind of merging, because, you know, depending on the situation, depending on the people you are dealing with, you need to use very different tactics to be successful. So, I mean, for me, there's no clear definition. It's bent together.
Can I add something here? This is Mike. Because I do a lot of mentoring and coaching, and someone finally explained to me the difference. And it's helped my mental model a lot when I'm working with people. So in mentoring, usually I've been there before and I'm explaining my experience. And in coaching, I haven't necessarily been there before, and or I'm letting people draw their own conclusions. So it's more about drawing something out of the person than something that I have direct experience with. Because I've run a few accelerator programs, and that mental model has actually helped me a lot, because the second I don't know the answer, I switch into into that coaching mode where I can draw things out, or if I don't want to give the answer, I can intentionally switch into that mode.
As coaches, we see patterns, and that allows us to actually almost summarize for people what their often very chaotic thoughts are, and sort of pull the gems out of it. And I think that is an important part of the coaching.
I personally see mentoring as someone who has walked in those shoes before, someone who has tried it. The experienced entrepreneur or the experienced business leader or whatever, or basketball player, that can actually show you and say, I've been there, I went through that pain, and this is how I solved it. The solution for you may be different, but this is how it played out for me. Right? That's what a mentor can say in a convincing way, with a lot of good reasons for saying things. The coach, on the other hand, like someone said earlier, doesn't necessarily have to have tried this before. it might help if you have, but as a coach, you're relying typically on certain frameworks or methodologies to achieve what you need to achieve with your coaching interventions, which is typically something about, have you considered enough options here? How do you feel about the decision you're about to make? Ask questions, right? I've never played basketball maybe, but I could still coach a basketball player, I think. So I see some clear differences for sure. Personally, I try to set these expectations before an intervention, right? What is my role in this? Maybe I'm a consultant because I know about this industry, and I probably can help out on a solution. Then I'll tell the coachee or the client, if I want to coach, I should say that, right? I should say, I'm here as a coach, this is what you can expect from me. Or even, I could be your mentor on this, because I've done exactly this. And I think people will appreciate that we are being clear about what is my role, regardless which of these roles that I take on.
Here a little bit about everyone, okay? And with this, I'm gonna ask Lars, we're gonna transition to the next part of the content, which is an introduction to the coaching basics. And I'm gonna ask Lars to take control of the presentation. I don't know, Lars, if you want to share your screen or not.
Absolutely, Diego. I have just a few hundred slides, nothing to talk about really.
Okay, the good thing is that Lars is, as I mentioned, the velocity disruptor, so even if it's 100 slides, we'll run through them because he's fast now. Lars, what can I say about Lars? I've worked with you many times. We have only met 3 or 4 times in person, I believe, but I definitely consider you a physical close friend. It's a real pleasure to have Lars mentoring me and helping me during my learning path, and I'm really proud to have the possibility of bringing his experience also to the table for your benefit. Lars, can you please introduce yourself to the team before you get started?
Absolutely happy to. Actually, I'm thinking of using a couple of slides just to introduce myself. But first, the beauty of being a coach is actually that as a coach, you learn as much, if not more, than the coach is that you're working with. And I'm learning as much from Diego as he hopefully is from me. So I'm not mentioning alcohol or anything from the times we've been together in person. That's not for this particular conversation, but it is a nice icebreaker. So let me dive into my introduction, and then we'll get into talk about coaching, which is a great passion of mine. I'm sure you will get to feel that. So I'm Lars Lin. I am a Dane, as you can tell from my strange accent. My birth certificate talked about something like 48 years, but that's the new 28, isn't it? And my personal MTP is resourcefulness for breakthroughs in every individual and team. Resourcefulness, that's the key word. The resourcefulness in each of us and everybody out there, which is why there's so much hope for humanity and for our planet, in my opinion. We just need to get that resourcefulness out of people, help them start believe that we can have an impact. But I've not always been about soft skills and coaching. I'm actually a geek like Diego, and I'm also a social entrepreneur like Ben. So all of us will have a lot in common, which I'm sure you will see. So I'm actually an electronics engineer and algorithm designer. So back in the late 1990s, I was designing facial detection algorithms for embedded controllers. So when techies are talking about they're working on cutting edge stuff, I'm like, come on, guys, this was cutting edge like how many years ago, right? But this is one of the points that the performance keeps doubling, and so now we are starting to be able to do amazing things with these technologies. But this is my background, and like 7-8 years ago, I started something called Co-Founders Club in Hong Kong, which is more about the experimentation attribute, and actually building cool startup teams and learn. I did it to learn about team dynamics, and it was absolutely amazing because I've been having corporate careers like many of you in Gartner and Ericsson and Danaher, a large venture fund in Washington, DC, and stuff like that. Places where you don't experiment. You don't experiment, period, right? So I wanted to do my experimentation. I had to do it outside of corporate careers. So I founded this Co-Founders Club as a place where I could come together with others who also wanted to experiment with technologies, but mostly with team building. And then in the past several years, I've been fanatically involved in studying the powers of community and crowd, the attribute. And I founded Community, which is where you help healthcare professionals to experiment without getting fired. and this is terrible. I have some terrible stories where doctors actually got fired from experimenting with new models and new technologies, which is why I created Community. And in a similar story, I created Educate for Life last year, which is a community that's really starting to fly, where we're designing the future of education. So that's kind of my background, a little bit of many different things, which I think is probably a good starting point for coaching, learning about people, learning about the world around us, and help everybody to be even more resourceful so they can change the world. My email is here, but I'll leave the link to this presentation and to this email after I'm jumping off the call at the top of the hour here. So I was also creating a virtual coaching business for entrepreneurs in India, and this is some years back before I met Diego. And this I built this on the back of book, and I figured out after I'd done my early validation of the need for this kind of service and our ability to deliver it and our ability to get people to pay for it and use it and do it online and so on and so forth. I had to build a platform to make this scale, and I got clearly that inspiration from Selim's book. And I talked about it on LinkedIn, and the next thing that happens is that Francisco calls me and says, hey, we are going to do the first 10-week sprint ever using this methodology. Would you like to be part of it? And this is where I met Diego, although mostly virtual in those days, in the early 2016. It was a tremendous opportunity and a fantastic experience to be part of transforming insurance with Interprotection. And just before I start talking about coaching, I want to paint the big example of what you can accomplish through coaching, because Lars from Denmark and Diego from Spain and a few other great guys managed to do this. This is what we managed to do. So here's just a few lines. I'm going to talk you through it. Here's a few lines of potential outcome that you can expect from coaching on an EXO sprint. And our client was, as I said, Interprotection in Mexico, and the largest insurance broker in the market. And they created the EXO sprint, doubling their revenue and tripling their profits within 3 years. I'm just saying it. It's quite a statement. But what matters really to me is not about these numbers. Is that Interprotection wants to impact our world positively, and they mean it seriously. So a year after we did this sprint, and many of you I'm sure will remember the Pueblo earthquake in Mexico City in 2017. It was terrifying in so many ways. Many insurance brokers stopped offering their insurance and their coverage in that period due to force majeure. It's like, hey, it's not our problem. You're on your own, guys, right? This is what you could tell the population. Interprotection wanted to do things differently. They offered free vital coverage to a lot of people who were uninsured in Mexico because they wanted to help, because they could also. And long story short, because they had people in the organization who had learned about the exponential methodology, they brought those alumni back together to create in 72 hours a new insurance product, bring it to market, and offer this free coverage. And by the way, after the dust has settled and everything, 36% of those free plans converted into paid plans, which became the foundation for this doubling of revenue and tripling of profits. There's a good business in doing good things out there. So because of the mindset, they wanted to help people. People became extremely loyal to them and started to buy their services. I'm just saying it as an example. We have many more. I'll share some later this week. There's a profound impact you can have on the world as a coach. The same thing, Bill Campbell, who was a coach to Steve Jobs and the whole Apple leadership team, and to Eric Schmidt and the Google leadership team. I strongly advise you to read this book, The $1 Trillion Coach. Eric Schmidt is one of the authors because Bill Campbell himself passed away not that long ago, actually. And just long story short, my key takeaway from this book is that the coach works the team works the problem, right? You as a coach are not the one solving problems for your team. That's your team's job. You're putting a team together so they can solve the problem, they can create that service, they can do whatever they are meant to do. You as a coach are working the team, helping the team to do their job. And this was Bill Campbell's approach to things, and he was brought into Google and Apple and many, many other iconic businesses to coach the executive level and specialists and many, many others from across these organizations. And so they took a coaching approach rather than a management approach, right? So this is not just about coaching, this is about a leadership style as well. So I have a little quick exercise that I want to involve you in. The question for you, and I'd like you to put your answers, whatever those answers are, in the chat box here in Zoom. The question is, what is your definition of successful coaching? What is your definition of successful coaching? Put your definitions in the chat right now, please. It can also just be words or short sentences, what comes to mind. What is your definition of successful coaching? I'm sorry about making you guys work already. I told you. All right, Carol, thank you very much for being the first one to the keyboard. Wonderful. Help the team by asking questions in order for the team to discover their own answers. Lovely. Ben, learning, growing, workable solutions. Wonderful. Marcus, magnify what's possible for an organization, team, or individual, so they see the amazing things that can be made possible. I love it. So now you guys are starting to accelerate. I like to see that. A good way to think is often to write, isn't it? And once you have the first version out there in the chat, you can have a second one. You can have a second go at it. Keep posting. Keep posting. And keep looking at each other's suggestions as well. There's a lot of great stuff here. Yeah. All right. All right, keep them coming. But I'm going to move forward to make sure that we get the most out of our time together today. But this is cool. So you know, it's hard for me to tell when this happened back in time because it feels like we are living 10 years every year. But I think this is 1 or 2 years ago. I ran a couple of sessions exactly on this question. Some virtual sessions for our community. And you can find them in our media library in the platform, by the way. I think you just need to search for coaching. You can find the recordings there. What you will find in that recording is also this slide. These are actually some of the results from the community members attending those sessions. And they were talking about, it's about coaching about fighting our typical instincts. It's about helping others finding the answers. Some of what I'm also seeing in your answers here, unlocking the potential for the client, help define the problem, asking good questions for others to see other perspectives, bring out the best in a person, help the client take responsibility, provoke people as somebody's opinion about successful coaching, motivate, so on and so forth, right? It's very aligned with your amazing input in the chat here. Very aligned. It's very exciting, but it doesn't mean this, right? It's just what those community members thought to be successful coaching. and you have many great additions, which I will capture for another occasion where I can share this again with you or with others. Some of the formal definitions of coaching are as follows, and I just want to give you 3 or 4 examples. The first one is coaching is helping someone to unlock their personal potential. I agree. There's a boring but very formal business definition, which is business leadership coaching is a type of human resource development for business leaders, which provides positive support, feedback, and advice on an individual or group basis to improve personal effectiveness in the business setting. Whew, that was a long one, but you get the point. Here's some other definitions. I'm not going to read them out loud. It's also about processes of training and learning and being thought-provocative and so on. There are many types of coaching, and I'm not going much into detail in this. Just quickly talking you through the fact that there's like performance coaching, which is about individuals' performance in the current role at work. It's very often about firefighting. If we need to get out of our misery and get into an acceptable performance level, performance coaching may do the job, but it can also take you from a good level to a better level. Skills coaching is probably more relevant to talk about. In my opinion, it's super relevant for EXO coaching, what you guys are doing and about to start doing. This is about developing core skills that you need to perform in your role. And here it's about your role in the future of your organization. What are those skill sets that are going to be important for your organization, for your exponential organization? Those skill sets can be acquired during a 10-week sprint. I'll show you an example in a few minutes on how many skill sets that you can acquire during a sprint. And so you'll be doing skills coaching, hopefully intentionally, but in the beginning you might be doing it without realizing it. Career coaching is not so much our ball game as sprint coaches. But having said that, if you coach senior leaders in an organization, you are going to coach them to understand that the EXO methodology, such as creating edge initiatives, turning them into EXOs on the edge, is an amazing new career path for those employees that are struggling in the organization because they're not being challenged, they cannot be creative, they cannot experiment, and for that reason many are leaving their company, and the leadership are frustrated, they don't know how to keep these people on board. This, I can tell you, is one of the most exciting career paths for many in existing organizations. And the senior leadership you're coaching needs to understand this and be aware of this. They will love it, I can tell you, when you make them aware of this opportunity. Personal life coaching, I'm not going into that here. I'm sure you guys will, and ladies are good at building trust, and that means people will probably already in your private life be coming to you and asking for advice by instinct because they trust you. But that we don't do that much really on the personal life coaching as part of a sprint. Business coaching is maybe closer to our ball game, and so is executive coaching. Even you will mostly probably be coaching teams, not so much individuals, but it is an opportunity. You can offer your services in executive EXO coaching in our marketplace and outside if you find that relevant. It's a great, great opportunity, but we mostly in sprints coach teams. Team facilitation, in the beginning of a transformation process, I can tell you sprint team members are looking at you for to take the lead because they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know their next steps. So you will need to be a facilitator in the beginning of any transformation project and then gradually hand over responsibility and ownership to the team. So you will be a facilitator, but try to work your way out of that role to just be standing, observing and coaching from the side, work the team so the team can work on the problem. These are just some of the types of coaching. And let me just specifically talk a little bit about some new capabilities that I saw being developed by teams. In this case, Visa Brazil in Sao Paulo. That's where the national headquarters of Visa Brazil is. They went through a 10-week sprint. I was privileged to be the head coach on that project. And I made a big deal out of following each participant in the sprint very closely. I made many personal friends on that note, by the way, but I was also registering which new capabilities and skill sets that each person developed during the 10 weeks. It's just a 10-week period, right? But they came back to me and said, this is what I learned. I kind of knew this before, but I never actively did this before. I kind of activated a passive skill, or I realized that this is important for me to learn. So, and I did it. Right? So here are actually the skills that were developed by some or many of the sprint participants in the sprint with Visa Brazil. It's pretty much exactly 2 years back that we did this. And you see many skill sets here. And maybe you take it for granted and you say, hey, they probably knew a lot about this already, but actually Visa identified these as capabilities and skill set that they either didn't really have, or it was too passive in their personal skill set. So because of the coaching and the sprint, they developed this and they activated these capabilities. And it's for another day, maybe on Wednesday or something, to talk you through some of the results they got out of this work. So that's another topic which helps sometimes to clarify this coaching term. Right? What is coaching? And some find it very helpful to compare coaching and consulting and distinguish between these disciplines. They're both very important disciplines. I know quite a few of you on this call from our consultant certification. And by the way, it's exciting to see you here. And I love seeing all of you here. So it's my opportunity to share a couple of thoughts on how we distinguish between coaching and consulting. They're both important disciplines, and you may be offering both to your client, and that's fine. Just always be crystal clear with your client which role you're taking right now, what hat you're wearing. Are you right now a consultant, or are you right now a coach? Because it makes a big difference on their expectations from you, what you're expected to deliver to them, and what role you have. The consultant, at least by our definitions and our ways of seeing this, it's somebody who's there to tell you, give you, provide to you, give you solutions and answers. The coach, however, is somebody who's got the questions, who's asking questions, who's inquiring, who's empowering the coachees to find the right solutions. The coach doesn't know the solution. The coach is not expected to know the solutions. The coach is there to help empower the team so they can find the solution. Now, the tricky thing here is many of you will easily be real experts on some of the topics that your teams will be considering and working on and struggling to master. And you happen to be an expert on one of those topics. So here's the tricky thing. It's not to cross the line between coaching and consulting. If you do make it very clear that right now you're stepping out of your coach role to provide some suggestions to answers to solutions, because you happen to know this will save them hundreds of hours, just have a look at this solution, guys, and this will fast track you to move on, right? It's not illegal, and it's sometimes necessary to do that because there's limited time for the team. But make sure to be very clear that you're stepping out of the coach role if you do that. So be the one as a coach who's empowering, who's intentionally not stepping in as an expert with solutions and answers. You're not doing that. You're asking questions. You're there to work the team so they can work the problem. Okay, this is kind of the very black and white approach. From the same Zoom session I mentioned earlier that I ran a couple of years ago, the participants in that call from our ecosystem, from our community, they gave these definitions, how they distinguish between coaching and consulting. And they are all great, I think. So I wanted to share this also. So on the coaching side, people are talking about, it's about experiences, it's about values, it's about strength, behaviors. Behavior is an important one in particular. It's about sharing scars. It's about keeping you accountable on your plan. If you're my fitness coach, and I hope you will be, I will be asking you, because it's nice to have somebody holding me accountable to get out there and do my jogging. And somebody will ask me tomorrow morning, so Lars, did you do your jogging? Yes, I did. Ah, good boy, right? So what's your plan for today? I need to go jogging again, right? It's also, a coach is also somebody to help you choose your work mode. But you're the one choosing if you are the coachee. But it's somebody to ask you questions. Are you in the right work mode? Are there other work modes that you could consider for the particular task you're trying to solve, right? Having somebody who is not involved on delivering a solution to a particular problem is very helpful. Somebody who's looking from the distance at you and what you're trying to do, looking at your behavior, looking at your work mode, looking at your team dynamics. Is Lars actually performing in the team, or why is Lars never here? Asking those questions. There can be good reasons for that, but for a coach, it can be helpful to ask these kind of questions. And for the team, it's nice to know that somebody watching us, somebody who's there to help us and support us and coach us, somebody creating the psychological safety that we need to get out of our comfort zone and suggest crazy ideas, things that we're normally not allowed to talk about by our company, or whatever it may be. Revisiting your goals is another thing that coaches can help do. Active listening is an important skill. Surfing your fears is one of my favorites, because we just have to admit it, that fear is a very, very key part of working on the edge of anything. Even when we are inside our comfort zone, we can feel terrible fear about anything in life. It's perfectly normal. It's not illegal to feel that. It's perfectly normal. It's fine. So, but we need to kind of get above and beyond where we are today and do 10x things with a global impact. We will have to serve these fears, and we will have to learn how to do this and get some help in the process, right? We need that coach to help us serve our fears and keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. Now, this is what our community friends told me are important words when it comes to defining coaching. And on the other side of this, back to consulting, just for comparison, they see consulting is about giving recommendations on how to solve problems, right? Hey, you should do A, B, C, and D, and that will lead you to a solution to your problem, right? This is what companies are paying a lot of money for. If they're not quite ready to embrace coaching, or they haven't seen that is existing, or they just want it done, they hire a consultant. They may hire you, and that's great, by the way, to come in and give them the solution, right? And you as a consultant may leverage coaching to actually achieve better and faster and so on. The consultant works on technical stuff, on business stuff, like business models, product market fit, specific technologies. They may do research on end users and all of that stuff. And by the way, all of this is somehow, somewhere part of a 10-week EXO sprint. You will learn a lot more about that. Some of you know already. But instead of letting the consultant do the work, we ask the sprint team to do that work, because only when the team gets to realize what's happening in the world, the technologies, what they are capable of doing now, the disruptive business models, how they are taking us out of business if we are not changing. The teams have to come to that realization, not some consultant they're hiring to make a report and come with some suggestions. There will be no ownership in their own organization if they buy a report from you, right? It's just, this is the challenge of the consultant. This is why the coaching approach is kind of disrupting consulting in many ways. And you're seeing the largest consulting companies in the world beginning to offer sprints like we have done for a long time. They are not very good at it, just from what I've seen, which is not everything. But this is both an art and a skill. And I think we have come a long way and learned a lot. And you will be in a really interesting space in terms of your own business when you begin coaching and you can offer this to your clients. So I'm very excited to have you here to take full advantage of this opportunity. There are some core coaching competencies, and all research, all science clearly points to at minimum these 4 competencies, which is empathy first. And you wouldn't be here if you are not strong on empathy, is my hypothesis. At least if you know what coaching means, or you knew when you signed up, but you do, and that's why you're here. You know how impactful this is, and you will need to connect at a personal level with other human beings to help them transform. They need to transform. They want to transform. You're there to just help them on that journey, right? So you need that empathy, and you need intuition. For an algorithm designer like me, this is a new word, right? We don't use intuition in algorithm design, right? But I've come to appreciate also my own intuition and your intuitive. So this is part of it as well. And humility. Humility is the fact that the more we learn, the more we know that we don't know, and we know very little in reality. So we need to be humble, and that's a good starting point to bring in a beginner's mindset. And this is, by the way, something I ask our clients all the time, to bring your beginner's mindset when we start this process, not your expert mindset. You have the expert mindset, we all have that. Bring the beginner's mindset, right? This is how you can start to think differently. You can start to unlearn some stuff you should have stopped doing years ago, and you can start learning what matters for the future. And then growth mindset is everything. Carol Dweck's fantastic work on the growth mindset versus fixed mindset, and we can all fall into the fixed mindset trap. It's not something permanent. But we need to, if we fall into the wrong pit, we need to get up and and apply the growth mindset again. It's very much about that we can change our skills, our behaviors. We can get to new results even if we failed, because everything is possible. We just need to keep learning and keep growing. We in the OpenEXO community have made a decision that there are certain skill sets and state of mind that are important for us when we hire sprint coaches. And you see them here on the screen. You see exponential and entrepreneurial mindset is important. We find that to be important. Responsiveness to coaching. Actually, a really important question that Bill Campbell from the $1 Trillion Coach book, he was famous for starting any conversation saying, are you coachable? Are you coachable? If we have a conversation, are you going to listen to it? Are you going to do any of what I'm suggesting? Because chances are maybe you're not interested, or maybe you're having a terrible day, so you're just not able to listen to or be part of our conversation today. Maybe it's just temporarily that you're not responsive to coaching. But so this is important, that you are responsive to coaching yourself, and you'll be asking, how am I doing, whenever you have the opportunity. Self-reflection, non-defensiveness. So, hey, I did poorly today on this presentation of basic coaching. You know, that's to be open about it. And that's be non-defensiveness, right? Or non-defensive. I did terrible, and I know it. Or you tell me, Lars, you did terrible. And I said, I did not, for sure. I'm the master of this. How could I do bad on this, right? So non-defensiveness is very important. This is pretty easy to coach people out of the non-defensive, the defensive mindset. It's actually easier, pretty easy, but it can be, you know, a strange feeling the first couple of times you get to experience it. People get to understand, hey, I was being defensive. There was no need for that, because we have a safe environment. We can share anything, we can suggest anything, and I just forgot it. Then we help you to assess the degree of transformation achieved. This is the game we're in. It's about transforming, but it can vary between projects how you measure that transformation. So talk to your head coach, talk to your sponsor of the sprint. What does success look like? And what is it we want to achieve in this transformative journey? How we measure it? And then you as a coach will need to assess how much we achieve of this transformation. We expect you to master the EXO methodology in so many ways. I don't know what that really means, except we just need to keep learning, right? Keep getting better and keep seeing new creative ways of applying it. This is really how I perceive mastery. We may think we're not entirely aligned on this, but that networking and community building skills are important. You can be a great coach without having this skill. So I'm putting this in brackets. Large organizational politics and the immune system. It's a great thing to have experienced that firsthand, been working inside a very strong immune system. It's a great learning lesson. You may never get over it mentally, but it's a great learning lesson. And great when you work with large organizations or small that have a strong immune system. Personal professional acumen is important, but it is in any job, isn't it? It's important for us. Empathy, flexibility, and a good EQ are important, as I mentioned earlier. It's great to be able and interested in building team culture and team leadership. And then online collaboration skills, for the reason you see today. Get used to it, but you are You are doing this every day, all of you. So, but your clients may not. So you may have to also coach them over that barrier, mental barrier it is to work together virtually. So I'm coming to the end of my introduction, but also to the end of the time here. But I'm sharing in just a few minutes the link to this presentation. So on your own time, you can come back to all of this, and also to this material I'm showing here, because we have been doing quite a lot of work with Diego, also a part of the key members of that group, to collect different super validated coaching models that are being used widely around the world in different situations for different use. But we wanted to give you this toolbox without introducing it today, really, just leaving you with this slide and with links to some brief descriptions, and then it's up to you to dive deeper or join some of our community sessions that we will do over time on each of these to help educate ourselves and each other on how can we work with these different models in our work as an EXO sprint coach. My closing slide is this. This is actually from the HBR article, The Feedback Fallacy, from March-April 2019. It's page 92 to 101. One of my favorite articles ever. It's about the right way to help colleagues excel. And there are some specific questions that we often ask, but maybe we should consider asking a different question at that point in time. And you see here some example. Again, come back to this slide on your own time. But my kind of key takeaway from this article is that we, and it's all of us, we are by no means the authority on what objectively good performance is. We are not. So set goals with your client, with your coaches, let them define the goals, what they want to achieve. We're just here to empower them to achieve those goals. And it's a very exciting role. I'm sure you're going to love it. I am very sure you're going to love it. And we're here to help you experience this role throughout this particular program that you're starting today. And we are here to support you and guide you as coaches as well. But you will also be coaching, and I hope you are looking very much forward to it. And there's a world out there that needs to be transformed, and we need you to be part of doing that. So for a better future, right? So I'm going to wrap here my part and just take questions in the last two minutes. I hope this was useful as a basic introduction to coaching.
Thank you so much, Lars. It's always so helpful and enlightening to hear you talk about your experience and your little tricks. And I must say that I was mentored also by Lars in this effort to really understand what being a coach is versus being a consultant, because I myself came from the consultant background, and I was like the creative mind that always wanted to push his own ideas. And Lars softly helped me do this transition. I am pretty sure some of you will struggle with that very same problem. So really, thank you so much, Lars. Maybe we can still use you for a couple of minutes, as you mentioned, for questions from you guys.
Maybe I talked too much. Everybody left. Is there anyone here?
You might have been too clear. There was a question related to facilitation. Do you think that facilitator would be also a good way to describe what we are doing? Horacio is asking, now the word facilitator is getting popular. What do you think about it?
Yeah, thank you very much for those links and hints there. The answer is yes. Facilitation is often needed in our coach role. As I mentioned earlier in my presentation, my preference is as soon as your team and your coaches are ready to take full responsibility for making decisions about next steps and do their own facilitation in their team, I'd like to see you step into the coach role and not the facilitator role. So, but in the beginning of any transformation journey, I see teams struggling in taking leadership, in finding their own way of doing things. Some are, and I'm talking about some senior executives from very big corporations that are passively sitting, looking at you and waiting for action to happen, because that's how they are used to work. So it can take a few weeks before you get to avoid the facilitation, but and then you will need to be a facilitator until the team is ready. And then for some, it's the cultural. There's a cultural thing where, because there's a more senior person in the room, and then nobody wants to stand up and facilitate, and the senior person doesn't expect to do it, and then you as a coach sometimes need to save the day for everybody by stepping in and doing some facilitation. That can be many unexpected situations and reasons why you need to facilitate, but you need to be able to facilitate from time to time, guaranteed.
All right, thank you so much once again, Lars. We really appreciate your time and your class, your
Thank you for watching this introduction video about the fourth industrial revolution and the second part of it about the importance of coaching skills. We hope you have gained a better understanding of the coaching role and how it will play out in this new era. I look forward to seeing you in the Abundance Coach program. Welcome on board Sprinthero.
Baby, good, baby.